Alcovaria's Gallery. Last minute preparations at stage I. Somehow I can hear myself.
But that'll do.
For the live for the,
Yeah, it's just until somebody will be able to see.
I was watching all your videos.
So it's
Oh,
already on the
really?
TV.
Oh, cool. I'm just going to get my apron out, I think. Might be a good move.
while the TV is deploying.
Oh, you wanna play? Oh, yeah.
Did you make that?
Oh, it's alive. Yeah. Yeah, that
Nice
was,
video.
that was fun.
I just saw them.
I'm always kind of up on Facebook, always talking about your color.
Here's
you know,
that.
I see your color.
Say hi, everybody.
Well, let's see if we can.
Aren't you queen of the reels?
Let's see if we can bring some
It's
colour
not
into our
real.
life.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Turn the sound down.
Well, I think we're just about ready.
Live. Let's see.
Thank you for coming. I'll get to know your name shortly.
Hello.
But let me sort of introduce myself to you guys. So I've been painting now for 50 plus years, I guess. Not always in pastel, of course. I started as a watercolor painter and then moved on to oils. And then from oils, it's got to be 35 years ago, I picked up some pastels for the first time through a friend of mine, and just haven't been able to put them down because I'm a fairly quick and immediate painter. Pastels suit my style now because it stops me having to wash brushes out every night.
Amen to that.
Mixing paint, getting covered in turps, of course, and you know, all the other. My wife hates the smell of medium turpentine and that sort of stuff. So when she comes down to the studio, it's, oh my God, this oils. However, pastels really suit me, and it's like pure pigment on a stick. You know, but of course we paint with pastel and you draw with pencils, of course, because it's the oldest sort of medium known to man. You know, the pure pigment has been used for millennia. If you travel to central France, for instance, there are caves there which have still got pigment drawings on. They've lasted millions and millions of years. So, you know, it just proves that pure pigment it is permanent, it's light fast, and it is one of the oldest mediums in the world. I've been using pastel now, as I say, for 30 plus years, and been fortunate enough to earn the right to become members of one or two societies. I'm a member of the Pastel Society in London, where past members, which are still logged in the records as Edgar Degas, Whistler, Bertha Morisot, and a few other, Sickert, Walter Sickert. So those are the past members of this society that I was elected. It took me 20 years to become a member there. It was a lot of sending in work each year and getting rejected time and time again, but I persevered and I finally became a member. And I'm also a member, signature member of the Pastoral Society of America, and I have been for about 10 years, I think. I'm a member of the Red Rocks Pastoral Society. I'm also a member of the Royal Society of Marine Artists in London. Again, that's been a sort of a bucket list ticked off for years and years and years. I'm a master pastoralist, pastoral artist of New Zealand. I lived out in New Zealand for 10 years. My wife and I went down on holiday back in 2002, and we sort of stayed there for 10 years. And that was a great experience to see those sort of vistas and paint mountains. I've never painted mountains that big before. However, I'm now back in the UK. My work and exhibitions and galleries basically forced me back into the Northern Hemisphere. So I left the South Pacific, and now I live in Scotland now, in the cold part of Scotland with the North Atlantic flowing into my studio. However, Scotland is a very painterly place to be. We have mountains up there, glens and lakes or rocks. But I still try to get away and do my workshop program is basically probably about 3 months each year. And apart from COVID, of course, that stopped us from moving around the world. This is my first face-to-face workshop tour in 3 years. I try to come to the US twice a year, in the fall and in the spring. When I leave here and go back home, which will be this weekend, I think. My next tour will be, I'll be in Australia in a couple of months' time, and I'll be doing some workshops down there. My workshops have taken me to China, Europe, the US, and down under, of course, New Zealand and Australia. So I've been a busy boy for the last God knows how many years, and clocking up the air miles, which is quite a bonus. 2019, just before we were, our lives were kidnapped for 3 years. My wife and I were selling our house down in the south of England, and this was late 2019. We completed on the house in Scotland, and we hadn't closed on the property that we were selling down in the south. And so my wife said, well, you're going to have to stay down there while I go up to Scotland and get the new house ready. I said, well, hang on, there's no furniture down there. There's just an empty house. Where am I going to sleep? She said, well, I don't know. You'll have to work something out. She said, you've got plenty of friends in the States. Why don't you phone up one of them and go and stay there for a while? So I thought, that's not a bad idea. So I put out a little message to say, wanted somewhere to stay for a week, house-trained artists, and will pay in paintings. And I had all sorts of offers coming through on my social media. Alaska was one of them, Newfoundland, but I ended up down in South Carolina. And I stayed down there for a week, and I painted, and I stayed with a friend, and then I had this sudden urge to go to Monument Valley to paint. And I thought, how do I get from South Carolina to Monument Valley with all my, I'll hire a few cars, I'll rent a few cars. And I just hopped all along and drove all the way up to Monument Valley, where I painted up there. And what I'm going to do this evening is, which is pretty apt, that I should paint you a Monument Valley painting. Sounds good to me. I've got a sketchbook here. It's called Monument Valley. I just filled it up with loads and loads of sketches of Monument Valley. It was just a wonderful place to be. I didn't take my pastels with me. I just took ink markers, sketchbook, pens, and I soaked up the atmosphere. And so, if we've got time, and I'm pretty sure we have got time, I've got one piece of paper there, a large piece of pastel paper, and I've got lots of small pieces there. I'm going to paint you, the first paint is going to be a full-size painting. It shouldn't take long. If you do get bored, just tell me to hurry up, and then we'll see if we can finish it off quickly. Once that one's done, if we've got time, I'm not quite sure how many minutes we've got, how many hours we've got, but I can paint maybe one or two other little paintings. But I thought Monument Valley would be a good start here, because we're in Red Rock country, aren't we, really? And I've got a photograph of I did take some happy snaps as well. But hey, just pass that around, would you, and have a little wee look, and you can see the sort of things that my brain gets up to when I'm painting away. Let me just see if I can find this image, and then maybe we can put it on the screen, or I'm not quite sure, but it's going to be this one here. That whether we can get it on the screen, or I'm not quite sure. Is that is it this
I
camera?
don't think we can if we have this for close up. So let's try how it will work. And
Well, it's going to be. I'm going to make you this.
Beautiful.
This evening.
Very nice.
Looks complex, I know.
It does. Not for him.
I'm sure we can get something done.
do you need to see it on the screen? Do you need to see it on the screen?
I don't know. Can you get it on the screen?
I mean, I'll have to start with that.
Just hold it in front of here and it'll pop up on the screen.
I love that.
You just have, there's a little bit of a delay.
Yes.
So look at the, am I in the right spot on the,
So.
Yeah,
So
no,
that's
I mean,
what
he wants to start the video.
Now,
And if I'll send this to you, will you pop it on the screen instead of the video, so we will not have a live stream?
sure.
when I was started some workshops, I was up in the US, up in the Northwest Pacific, and somebody asked me if I used alcohol at all when I paint. And I generally say, no, I use that after I finish painting. And they said, no, do you use alcohol and brushes to mix the pastel on the, and I said, no. I'd never heard of that. That you sort of use alcohol. You put a few marks on, you get a brush, and you use that sort of alcohol spirit and move it around to make a wash, an underpainting. Well, I don't do that. I did paint watercolours, I'd say, for many, many years, and like I say, alcohol usually comes at the end of a painting in my world, and it usually comes in a glass with a bit of ice in it. So no, I don't use alcohol.
There you go.
Oh wow.
There. Oh, look at that.
Wow.
Well, so this is obviously this is fairly recognisable, hopefully, and I'm hoping that I've got all the colours available, and if not, I might have to pinch one or two. This is a nice box with the box.
Your
Is that yours?
compositions.
Yeah, help yourself. It's
Your compositions in here are amazing, like just the way you see it.
Well, thank you.
They're all just perfect.
I suppose I guess it's all the years, the years and years of playing and painting. I paint every day, and I'm a firm believer in sketching and drawing to make your composition and to explore the concept.
just have
Sketching and drawing, to me, is the ABC and the language of painting. It's a painting. It's a language. Listen, we've all learnt a language at some stage in our life, at the age of 2 or 3 years old, I guess. And so there's no reason why we can't learn the language of painting. And sketching and drawing is the ABC of painting. And so, the more you sketch, the more you draw, the better as you become as an artist.
When you paint or draw every day, is it plein air or is it in your studio? Are you outside or?
I paint both, yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, the bigger pieces I paint in the studio.
Yeah.
But, you know, things like, you know, up to, say, 16 by 20 is probably the maximum that I take outside.
Outside, yeah.
So how do you choose the color paper that you're going to use?
Well, that's interesting. What was your name?
Nina?
No. It's interesting because the colour of the paper, I like these warm mid-grey papers. You know, this is a sort of a mid-value. You know, values, we've got to remember, of course, values are very important. You know, it's the bones of a painting. You know, you've got to pitch the values correctly, because as we all know, the colour just takes the glory as the star of the show. So, you know, my paintings and the way I paint, even pastel as well as with oils, is that I pitch the values first. I start from dark values and I build up to lighter values, and I paint it in the method of fat over lean, which is, you know, thin paint building up to thicker paint. Now, I keep saying paint because you do paint with pastel. It is a pigment on a stick. I use all soft pastels. All of them are soft. You know, you get hard, you get medium, and soft. The only hard pastel, semi-hard pastel, which I found is this little charcoal stick, and I quite like using this one. This is it's called, I don't know, it's called something like soft charcoal pastel. I get it on Amazon for £6 for a dozen or something like that. But they're really good because they allow me to block in all the darks. I mean, hey, listen, we've got a reference photograph here now. We've got the sketchbook, we've got the memory, and the concept is been up here. So it's very important now for me to half close my eyes to cut out all the unnecessary detail and to start with my darkest darks. And it's not too difficult to see on the monitor here where the darkest darks are. And you know, first of all, there is, you know, a fair old size dark here. So let's just brush in, and you'll hear that word an awful lot, brush, because, you know, I want to get that organised there. So you know, even when I'm walking, when I paint, I do tend to stand back, half close my eyes, and make sure that everything's sort of falling into the right place. There's some darks along here, same dark. We'll darken this up shortly, but that's not a bad start. And then it sort of goes along here, and there's another peak there, I think. And then there's a few we'll call them monuments because that's what they are. There's a few monuments there. So that's not a bad start. Look, you know, things like this. You know, there's what, 7,594 stones there. Well, I'm only interested in a couple of them. And I can see there's that one there, and there's a couple of, I call them dinner plate ones. There's one there, and just underneath here somewhere there's another one, one there. There's the base of the...
Nope, it's gonna stay this way. That's
Okay, so
what setting is
that's
for this
not a
stream
bad
today.
start.
Sorry guys.
In my suitcase, there's that sort of blue towel on the floor with that? Yeah, that would be great, thank you. Thank you so much. That just keeps the hands clean. So we paint from dark to light, of course, so that's the first, basically that's the first pass. Now, everything seems to be set in the right place and the right position. So, let's just readjust it slightly, and then it's really dark in there, and then that bit sort of goes like that. The detail will come a little bit later. I'm doing neck exercises as well here, so it's, just bear with me, because the screen's at a different angle for me, but roughly like that, I think. And then there's a few darks there, and of course we know that this is going to be really dark. Now, of course, painting from photographs is you've got to be careful. You've got to use your photographs sensibly, because the colours that you see, they're pixels. We're not trying to paint pixels here. We've got to think about the reflected light and all of those other issues that come into place when you're painting plein air. So it is important to understand what happens with the way the light changes every 5 seconds as you're painting. So that's a really important factor. Now, that's quite black there, but in real life, and we all went to Monument Valley. I'm sure we've all been up there, but if you haven't, you will know that underneath all of this darkness, you've got to look at the body and the bones of the structure. Now, I know for a fact that when I was looking up there, that there was, in the shadows, there was this sort of blue-violet colour that I could see. So I'm just going to float this sort of, warmish, because it's got a bit of red attached to it. So that just needs to be dropped in there. And then maybe just a hint just there, and maybe 1 or 2 areas along there. So when I was, I've been painting actually. I really started painting seriously when I was about 12 years old, I guess. My art master at school, I always remember he said to me one day, he pointed out to the playing fields out in the classroom, and he said to me, "Okay, so what colour is the playing fields?" I said, "Well, sir, it's green." And he said, "Well, you need to look at a little bit closer than that," because he said, "There's other colours that you need to take in. It's not just green." Look, there's a nice colour. That's better. And he said, because there's reflected light, and as what we've just spoken about, there's microorganisms, this plant life and what have you. So he said, you need to seriously look about what's going on in your world. And it wasn't until a few years later and lots of observation and training and looking at my surroundings, that I started to see the colours, and of course the more you paint and the more you observe, the easier it actually becomes, because in reality painting is really not that difficult. It's just that we tend to get in the way, and we tend to make it rather difficult ourselves. Now there's a little bit of light up there somewhere, and there's a wee bit coming down there. And then I'm just going to lightly brush over this area here, where all this debris has fallen. Yeah. We might keep that one out because we might use that again. Now, of course, when I paint, I tend to make a mark, stand back, check it, observe, and make sure that everything's sitting in the right place. You know, there are sort of perils doing that, especially if you're painting at the Grand Canyon and you don't look backwards. So you're just going to be a little bit wary of where you're treading. And what about a little bit of this? I need some warmer colours, I think. It's probably going to be in this box. Now, where do we start this thing? Well, I'm going to start up in this area up here, because to me that's the next value. That's the mid values there that I think that need to be put in. So I'm going to block in again these shapes. There's a funny little shape there, and then just about here there's another, and there's, of course, there's one there, one there, and there's a few blocks there. Oh, let's forget our big rock. There's that one there. I think that needs to go in. There's another little one next to it, and our two dinner plate rocks are down there somewhere, and there's one about there, and the next one is on there somewhere, and then we come down back and slowly build this up. Like I said at the beginning, it's important to pitch the values just right. There's a darker value just about there. I missed that one out. Just about there. And there's that nice area there. And of course, this that area like that. Re-establish those. Stone again. And there's some more darks in there, which I'm going to put in with possibly this one, just about there somewhere. Keep that out. Well, let's just flick in just a little bit of that lighter value, just to see where we're going. This one might work for us, I think, or would it be that one? I think this one. let's stop there and think about the sky. Now, I mean, look, there's some clouds there, but I think because of all the texture and all the interest in the sky, sorry, in the rocks, I don't want to spend too much time
What colors do
putting.
you use?
Oh, BV9.
BV9,
I can
use
see that.
and BV10. BV9 and BV10.
I use this an awful lot, BV9, blue violet 9.
Of course, gosh. You should.
That's a sort of a pink.
Which pastels are these?
These are
Unison.
unison.
BV9, BV10.
Yeah.
And if you go on Dakota Art and put Tonya Lane, they put together all the list of his supplies, so that's the best thing was yeah, in Dakota Art you'll put Tonya Lane and it will have everything what he uses.
And that's all he's doing.
Okay, so basically, because there's all the texture, of course, is in the rocks, and that's where all the interest is. I'm not really interested in those fluffy clouds that are sort of spreading over the landscape. That really doesn't do anything for me. So I probably won't paint the clouds as such, but I will. But this BV9, Blue Violet 9, made by Unison, is really a good sort of blue sky painting, what I call a Californian or a Nevada sky painting.
And we make them in giant sticks. Just saying.
They do.
They do. Like you can have big sticks of that too.
What do you like better, the smaller ones, bigger ones?
Well, for this, what I've done, I get
Really about the big ones.
Yeah.
But in general, so this is the size.
Okay, so I'll be standing probably in front of you guys for the moment, in front of this wall here, but I really gotta get this the sky done.
go on the website.
Yeah, Dakota. This one.
Yeah, I know about
They all different. I mean, they can.
Well, we'll just make this up as we go, I think, in this area.
No, one stick is from $1 to probably $15, the most expensive, but Russia is probably $15 probably. Something like that. Between $4 and $5 is a ballpark, but if you buy by a set, it decreases and look for sales and other things. So if you're in the pastels, you you're still counting. Yeah, it's healthier for you. Just it's healthier for you. We want to you guys be happy and healthy, and at the end, everyone with most pastels win, right?
Just will make it look a little bit more authentic. Hold up in the foreground, there's lots of bits and pieces down here. That. Now, I think a little bit of colour is needed, a little bit of sort of coppery colour. Is that going to be? No, that's no
Is
good.
there any on the table?
Well, that one, that might just start working for us in one or two places. Because
Yeah, right there in the boxes and stuff, so. Also for you to try that.
It's amazing that it's we did a workshop one time dedicated to sketching YouTube. I think it was one of my favorites.
we don't want that. Still think that's a little bit too. That's a little bit too light there. Need to just take it back just a wee bit, I think. Yeah. Yeah. And then the final pass over that is sort of a nice blue-grey. Maybe that one.
Oh, I did on purpose not print them, so the color impact.
Like some of them, like so the galleries will have controls, they frame, like other ones, they keep the color.
Okay, so now let's start working on the detail that's in the foreground here. All this debris that's fallen down. Let's start with our famous rock again. I think that's the wrong one.
Tony is using Semelier Lacquard, and is this sienna color paper, Tony? What?
This is called sienna. Yeah.
Yeah,
This is a
sienna by Semelier Lacquard.
This is a sienna paper. So there is an awful lot of debris and rocks and
Yeah, same paper, just different colors.
all sorts spread around
Same
here,
grades, everything.
which we don't really want to spend all our time
No, it's,
painting. I'm just going to indicate and make up all this mess that's
You can pass around.
and you can compare with the different ones, so this is called, like a different color, this is for.
and then we'll get the next stick and start indicating.
This is your. Sketchbook, somebody, Walter is big sketchbook. I want to do, you know, like,
Yeah.
on this fire.
Tony, how many layers does this paper take?
How many?
How many layers? So over.
Oh, no more than 4 or 5. We mustn't overdo it because otherwise it just looks a bit too rough. So, so I'm just finding these. Look, there's a nice one there. That dark shadow. I need to put that dark shadow in again. This. I think that's important. Yeah. And all these rocks and bits and pieces. It's a little bit like putting a patchwork quilt together, isn't it? I can't even see what's going on over on that side. Stand back a wee bit. And now. That's a nice one, just there. And that finishes off quite sharply there, doesn't it?
are you using now?
This is like a dusty pink, isn't it? And there's some bigger rocks and slabs just around there. There's a couple of and then a few more down there. You see the importance of painting light against dark in areas like this. It is really quite important. And just up in here, there's going to be a bit of light catching there. A few odd bits, I guess, about there. And then how are we doing?
Spectacular.
Is it happening, do you think?
Yes, very much, it's incredible.
Keep that one out because we just want a lighter version of that. And there it is there.
It was black charcoal for the first step. Hard pressed charcoal.
So you can see that we're building up from the very dark values that we started, and we're putting in the well, I call the sprinkly bits, the icing on the cake.
It's really exciting. Right.
And then again up there, of course, and then something like that. That piece there is important. Either now, think about the foreground for a moment. Now, the foreground, we've got some green. Let's put some green in somewhere. What about something like that and that? Since we know this is some sort of, well, that's a bit violent, I think. The colour of the paper also helps because it's another value, it's another colour that we can use. Now now is it going to be that one? No, that's just a wee bit too bright. Well, it has to be this one, I think. No, that's too yellow, isn't it? We know that's too yellow. Try again.
You'll manage.
Right. Oh.
Well, I've seen it, and I guess you have as well. There's a sort of a path that runs down there. We'll just pop that in.
It's just magnificent.
Let's get back to our greens. There's a bit of greenery there. What we don't want to confuse the eye and bring the eye down there all the time. So it's important that we don't overpaint the foreground. I think it probably could do with a little bit of dark somewhere.
Tony,
YouTube viewers are saying that they showed your work to their better house and words genius and brilliant are used every time. Do you guys concur?
Yeah.
Well, I'm amazed.
Just being humble. It's fun.
You know, when you're working plein air, of course, you've got to work fairly quickly. I'm trying to sort of give you guys the impression that we're out in the field. Just got to do one more layer, and I'm just trying to find the perfect stick. At home, in my studio at home, I got about 3,000 sticks to choose. Yeah, I know, it's crazy, but yeah, I'm going
You're
to
always missing the right one, right? So,
well, there, now, put that greens away. Well, the sky, we got the sky, of course, up there, that blue, but I think it probably needs something else up there. And let's just, and like I say, I don't really want to put a cloud in there. So, what would you do as painters?
Clouds.
Cloud, okay.
A couple clouds.
A cloud.
Yeah, one just to find out.
Well, what about a bit of this, maybe? What about a little bit of turquoise in the sky?
That's right.
Is that going to be crazy?
No, no.
Perfect.
No, it won't be crazy.
That's how the sky.
It won't be crazy.
следующий раз полезет, когда за поставками надо вот над этим. No, that's fine. I'm just saying the next time he's gonna reach out for pastels. I think, yeah. Я не успела просто.
Фотографии снял.
Just float a little bit of turquoise on top of it.
I broke it up.
Just to give the sky, just to give it a bit of fizz in places. Now, I think the final thing, we just need to poke in a little bit of power in some of the light source, I think. You agree, yeah? Don't you?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Right, so what about, okay, half closed eyes now, I look at my subject and I think, okay, well the first thing I'm going to do is just put a little bit of light on that rock. It just needs to be done. And there's one there, and it forces us to look again at that one down there. And then definitely one or two here, and then just a hint of it there. And then definitely, and maybe
And that one little fleck you just put up there in that dark area.
somebody said to me the other day when I was doing a demo, do you do Morse code on yours? And I said, well, yeah, I do actually, because I sort of say to myself, you know, I need to put one there. There, that's, I'm gonna finish with that little wee demo. Oh, some water, that's what I need.
Yeah.
Tony,
Thank you.
not a criticism, but a question.
Yeah.
In your picture here, you can pick up the contour where the large rock broke away, and you have all that real light up on that wall.
Oh, right in the center there.
Right in the center.
Yeah.
Could you have used that and done something with the contour to make that the center of interest? Or?
Maybe, yeah. But, you know, if this was, an exhibition painting, when I said, you know, this was going to a major exhibition, then it's probably, you know, I would have probably.
you guys for
Oh, sorry
watching.
about that. That's okay, it was finished now. I probably would have spent another, perhaps another
Thank you
half
for
an hour
watching,
on
guys.
the
See you
painting.
soon.
Of course, I wouldn't have had, you know, an audience in my studio or.
Thank you,
or
thank you,
in-
thank you. Please make
on
sure you share
location.
the video if you like it, tag Red Rock on
But
your
yeah,
social media,
so-
subscribe to
so
our
that's-
YouTube, Instagram,
that's a
Facebook and
little
everything. Thank you
demo.
guys.
I'm not quite sure